Today we are using a simple courseware, demonstrate the adaptability of the courseware. In other words, different students, based on their interaction with the courseware, they see different content. Or rather, their learning paths are different. This achieves personalized adaptability within the courseware. Let's take a look at this courseware. It has a main timeline. This main timeline contains several animation pages. This courseware contains 4 different storylines. Each storyline can actually implement a complete animation sequence. Let's jump back and take a look at this one. We enter the main animation line. Or rather, the main storyline. Clicking on it allows for editing. Here we can see its subsequent. If the student chooses option B, the subsequent jump to parallel storyline 1. If option C is chosen, it can jump to parallel storyline 2. At the same time, we add additional settings here. It can give the student if chosen correctly. The same thing can also happen with options B and C. In fact, we can all do this kind of setting. For example, here we choose B, and we jump to 4. In the future, to display this transition process, here you can see the graph analysis. This is the logic of different transitions in this courseware. For example, in storyline 1, it is very likely to jump to this point. It can jump to storylines 2 and 3. We click on any node, it can take you to the editing area. Directly take you to the time point of this transition. This is based on the student's learning situation. Based on this transition, in fact, we can do more complex transitions. For example, at this point, we call this kind of setting a fork. At the fork, if the student clicks on it, it can be based on the student's actual score. That is, the transition based on the current learning score. It can also transition based on the associated knowledge point concepts. We haven't set any concepts, but the entire courseware can be designed based on knowledge point concepts. The so-called concept is a node on the knowledge graph and some predefined variables used to determine the transition logic of this animation process. Let's take a look at this example. For example, in this case, we can, I already said. For example, these questions appear here. We can assume here. Page 1 chose. Page 2 chose. This third page chose. This is the 4th page. Then we add rules to the transition logic here. How much is the total score for the 4 choices? Then jump to the corresponding storyline. Right. That's where you set it. For example, jump to storyline 4. We can set different rules. In this case, when it comes to this point, you click on it. Based on the different learning paths of students, it can jump to different storylines. Let's do another demonstration. Look at this first one. Let's assume we just said if option 1 is chosen, the correct answer. It gives a flower. Let's go to the second one. We just set it to choose option A for each correct answer. Let's assume each one chooses a. If we choose different options, it can jump to different places. I won't demonstrate it. To summarize again, we just said, based on the different learning behaviors before, it can be clicked to. You see, our previous setting was. In this case, it jumps to this timeline. For example, let's see the original look. Let's take a look to make sure. You see, if it meets this requirement, then it jumps to the timeline. It goes through this way. In fact, we have various ways to achieve transitions. A personalized one that can meet various needs. That's about it.